We went to Iceland for our anniversary, and of course, I had to go surfing. But first, we did some other fun stuff. We visited this church that's since been closed up. I won't try to pronounce the name of it, so I'll just put the name here on the screen.
It's cool as hell. I think they're locked.
About to go surfing, hopefully. I made reservations to rent a surfboard several weeks, a month ago or so. I remember when I came here 8 years ago, there was surfing, like they'd take you out on an excursion and everything. It doesn't look like they do that now, so I'm just renting a board and going to a spot I found on Surfline. I'm also going to ask the surf shop if they have any recommendations. I did have to bring my own 5.4mm wetsuit that I use on the east coast of the US in the winter because they didn't have any wetsuits available. They had a few, but none that were my size, I guess. Packed my booties, my gloves. I really regretfully did not pack my dry robe, my changing robe. So it's like a windbreaker with heavy fleece on the inside, and you can change in and out of your wetsuit in there. Okay, so my focus is still off, but I'm bringing my GoPro with my floaty on it and my mouthpiece that's not here. But this screw, okay, you can't see it, but it is a survivor. I realized I only brought one screw for my whole GoPro setup this entire trip. Big mistake. And then this thing fell out when we were being lowered into the volcano. I found it at the bottom of the volcano, like inside the crater. And then yesterday at Blue Lagoon, it also fell out. So, and I was able to find it with my toes and pick it up with my toes in the Blue Lagoon. It's like, you can't see past like 6 inches in the Blue Lagoon, just for reference. We met up with the owner of Adventure Vikings. It's a shop that also does paddleboarding, scuba diving, etc. I rented a 7.6 Bic longboard, fiberglass board. They're the same company that also makes the mechanical pencils and pens. I thought it was pretty funny that they made surfboards, but it was either this or one of those Costco foam boards, the wave storms, which are horrible. I hate them. I was also able to rent a dry robe to change in and out of, which I was eternally grateful for. When I saw the waves, I felt pretty good about surfing here. The foamy, crumbly, whitewashed waves are just perfect to catch waves on as a beginner. I attached my GoPro using this gooseneck clamp, which I use whenever I rent surfboards and everything, or I use my little mouthpiece. But I've never had an issue with this. It did come off one time in Hong Kong, but it always floats because it has a little floaty on it. When I got into the water, I was a little bit unnerved. The water looked kind of black because there's so much black sand. The black sand is, of course, from the lava that's just hardened and ground up. So I couldn't really see that well. I did catch a couple waves. I mean, they weren't great at all. Missed quite a few. I hadn't surfed on a fiberglass board in a while, so that kind of contributed to it. I also started thinking about sharks while I was out here, and just kind of started getting a little bit unnerved. I did catch 1 or 2 waves. I mean, barely. But I usually go into the whitewash to warm up. I did stand up on a couple waves, like for a couple seconds, and that was about it. After catching my last wave, the leash just snapped. I've never had that happen before. The leash looked pretty old, so you can see it right here. And then right after that, the gooseneck clamp came off the board because it went into the sand. The surfboard went into the sand, and then it came off. And I went to grab the board first because I didn't want it to get like washed out to sea, thinking that the GoPro would float because it had a floaty. When I put the board just up on the sand a little bit, I looked around and did not see the GoPro, and we never saw it again. I don't know if it got pulled out to sea or if it got pulled under a little bit. It always has floated with the floaty and gooseneck and everything, but the water was just so dark, it was hard to see anything, and it was mixed with the black sand, like I said before. So there wasn't much visibility. We searched for like an hour. My husband and I went up and down the beach. We looked, zooming in on our phones as like a temporary binoculars. We went up on the rocky barrier at the edge of the beach to look and never found it. I used to take a picture on all my SD cards of my name and contact information in case I did lose the GoPro, but I stopped doing that a few years ago. I think the GoPro is lost forever. It's probably floating towards mainland Europe or something. So I ended up getting out of the water after snapping the leash and losing the GoPro. I of course wanted to find the GoPro, but I also didn't really feel like surfing afterwards. I didn't feel safe without the leash. The waves were getting bigger and everything, and I've never really surfed without a leash other than if it's like really gentle and calm, just some really small waves and there's no current. And then, of course, losing the GoPro kind of disheartened me. You know, there's worse stuff that can happen in life, but I was kind of bummed out and everything. Plus, it was pretty cold. Another thing that was affecting me, this is a little TMI, so skip the next 20 seconds if you're queasy, but it was that time of the month, and I never surf during that time. I know there's a lot of controversy on whether sharks are like attracted to women and stuff like that during their periods, but I never do. I spend the entire time thinking about how sharks are gonna come at me and, you know, hunt me down. It's also just super uncomfortable for me personally, and I don't do it unless I'm vacationing somewhere. Like I did it in Portugal as well because I didn't know when I would come back to Portugal again and surf. On a higher vantage point now. I mean, I don't really think I'm gonna find it, but might as well try when it's low tide. So these are ideal waves for me, where I can just wade out and catch the little whitewash or smaller green waves, I guess. Yes. Alright, so where I lost it was about right here. The black sand meets the tan sand. Man, those waves are crazy. They keep like shooting and like meeting each other. Like anyway, so it would have been right over here, but you know, it could have floated away. It could be floating to Greenland right now. Maybe somebody also picked it up on the beach this morning or something. I don't know. Could be way out there. I wish it had a tracking device on it. I looked up air tags to see if they're waterproof, but they're not waterproof for long. They only go down to like 3 feet. So this is about where it happened, and the dog, I saw the dog this morning, came over here and clearly is digging. Maybe the GoPro was right there, the dog took it, but we saw the lady get into her car and she wasn't carrying anything, so I don't think many people go to this beach anyway. Alright, so update, we did not find the GoPro. We looked for an hour, did not wash up. Searched the beach, we searched the rocks, searched the water as much as we could.
And at least there's one table here. And this is what you see in every single cave that had livestock. You see always this some sort of rub up against the walls, and that's why it's in the. It's not in a good archaeological shape. It's not like dividing wise. But in the year 548, there's a man called Saint Brendan who travels on an Irish skin boat to an island called Thule. Thule, most likely Iceland, like way before Iceland was ever called Iceland. And then people have been arguing if Thule is Iceland, Faroe Islands, Greenland, whenever they find sticking out of the ocean on the way between them. But he travels for 6 days, which is the same time that Vikings later talk about, like years later, when they take the same route. After being raiding in the Bits Islands, traveling to the Orkney Islands, Faroe Islands, and then ending up in Iceland. But then all of a sudden, Thule doesn't seem to exist anymore. So somewhere along the way, it most likely changed names, which is not that far-fetched. Iceland had few names before it was even called Iceland, and Thule most likely the first one. But the reason why the man is going to the island to begin with is because he's going to meet an old friend, or a friend of his father. A man that had been in the island for about 60 years. His name was Paul, and Paul lived in a cave in the southern part of Norway. And some people have been researching the stories. They've been throwing around the possibilities of that man possibly living here in this area. Some people going as far as saying that he might have been in some of our caves. The problem is, of course, that we're missing that Paul wasn't here writing on the wall. It's hard for us to prove it, but there are a few versions of the story that have lasted throughout the centuries. In some of them, a talk of a cave that fits perfectly for 1 or 2 people, that has loads and loads of fertile land for sheep, and fresh water full of fish right outside the door. And of those very few caves that fit this description, we have 4 of them in our property. They're all lined up in the river here, so if it was any time anywhere, at least we have a super likely spot. And the river is kind of the key in it because it's not glad to talk to the old people, because old people usually know shit. And usually don't mention up what they thought, and all of them were just like, chill out, man. No big deal. It's all happened before we probably got an eruption coming or whatever. Good as answers in, how do you know that? And they said that something is building pressure in the mountains. Groundwater gets sucked away somehow. And when the pressure is off, the water comes back. I am no scientist. And I have no idea if it's a scientifically proven thing, or if it's more like a farmer's folklore, just like knowledge of being around the nature and just knowing stuff. What has happened multiple times is that local knowledge and folklore like this are very often outranking the top scientists, so it could very well be connected. And this unknown thing close to some of the volcanoes in the area, is some of them start to dry up smaller rivers and streams around them like right before an eruption. So that's why they say that this could be like a longer indicator of something happening over a longer period of time, like being further away and all. So next time you hear something exploding in the southern part of Iceland, you heard it first, and then you know we probably got water, so we'll see what happens. All of them have chimneys. This one is in the original size, and this one is so close to us we can still see original tool marks, those little notches and lines inside the stone itself. Stone stacked on top all the way to the surface. caves if you leave them open. They built the stone wall and separated those two rooms. Came from somewhere. Marking from ropes in both of them. But we cannot put heavy things in. To the floor, almost all the way to the chimney. Making up something that looked to be like some sort of fireplace or something. And every time we find anything in or around those caves, we have to call those guys from the agency. They have to come here, be experts, and tell us what we're looking at. And I don't know where we would be if we wouldn't have all those experts laying around, and probably everybody running around with no pants on or something. Everybody in the left shoe on the right foot. But they came, they looked at this, and they were asked, isn't this some sort of fireplace? Looks like one. It's like right in the middle of everything and kind of ends in the chimney. And what else should it be? But they were all like, no, probably not. Why not? Because it's not a Nordic fireplace, they said. Fair enough, but couldn't it be somebody else's? It's not like the Nordic guys invented fire. Like, that thing has been going on for a while, so. And they said, no, it's not really anybody else's because, you know, nothing really happened in the island before we got Nordic people in it. Which is a fairly big of a statement coming from a dude who's supposed to be an expert. Especially when his family, when it's kind of already known it's not true. And we know it from our own books. We've got a bunch of stuff written from way back in the days. All of those old skin-written books and scripts and stuff. And one of our oldest book is the Book of the Settlements, which is about when the first Nordic guys come to settle the island. And it begins something on the way when the first Nordic guys came to settle the island, they actually met people already there. It is like right there, first page. Here until it was like red hot. Take them out, place them here somewhere on those stones, and cook on it. So it's more like a stove than actually a barbecue. Between the stones, not really burning flames, more on the lines of burnt peat moss. The works is cold. I don't have a roof. A well-built chimney stands for a long time, 150, 200 years. And it says the woman's name, Saska. Saska is an Icelandic woman's name. In the ancient stuff. Yes. I don't know, it's
Cellar.
Reykjavik hut, just holding stones while they were building that. And grandfather of the family at the time was working in that construction. The steps, the wall full of modern dirt and everything.
Of course. Here you have to do a bit longer sometimes.